Once again, Japanese people have gone viral for cleaning. Welcome to Japan Station, where we talk about everything you should know about Japan, plus a few other things. I'm your host, founder of JapanGate.com, and the anime linguist on YouTube. So, once again, it's the World Cup, and Japanese people have gone viral for cleaning the stadium. Now, let me be clear here. I love soccer, and actually, I am purposefully not watching the World Cup because I know if I start watching, I'm not going to be able to stop. So I'm avoiding it. That happened to me a few World Cups ago where I just kept watching and watching. I couldn't stop myself. So I'm not watching. But on June 14th of 2026, there was a big viral news event related to Japan. So Japan played against the Netherlands, and the Netherlands was favored to win. They're a strong team, and many people expected them to win. However, Japan managed to tie 2-2 in what I've heard was a very exciting game. I haven't actually watched it. Again, I'm trying not to watch soccer because I have other things to do. But it was an upset to many people in that, again, the Netherlands was the team that was expected to win. However, rather than that being the news story that really went viral, what ended up going viral was the fact that the Japanese fans in the US, in the stadium, I think it was Dallas, right? They cleaned up after themselves. So they had their blue trash bags and they threw all their trash away, and they even cleaned up a little bit outside of their area, maybe. It seems some reports that I read were suggesting that. So maybe they even cleaned up trash that wasn't their own. FIFA posted a video of this. I believe it was on their X account, and that went crazy viral. And then the news picked this up, and tons of content creators did content about this. Everybody was amazed at the Japanese people going, "Oh my God, I can't believe they clean." And this happens every 4 years. Look, for somebody like me who is generally paying attention to what's going on in Japan and things related to Japan, this story has been so annoying because I see it every 4 years. And well, whatever. It's a good story in that, look, I wish more people would clean up after themselves, not just in stadiums, but in general. We get too many stories about people being the opposite of helpful when they're abroad. And we've gotten many stories of, unfortunately, foreigners in Japan littering and leaving their trash. We even did a story about, well, an episode about that recently on this podcast about foreigners leaving their suitcases around Ikebukuro. Go back a few episodes, you can listen to that one. So yeah, I'd much rather see a story about Japanese people, picking up their trash than a story about Japanese people dumping their trash on the street or something like that. But anyway, the thing that I want to talk about is the origins of this custom of Japanese soccer fans picking up trash at the end of a game. Where did this come from? Is this an ancient Japanese tradition? Is this an innately Japanese thing that only Japanese people do? Well, let's get into it. So here's the reality of this episode. I already recorded this episode once before with my co-host Miyuki because we had done research and we thought, okay, we've said everything we can say about this. And then this morning, today is June 22nd. Well, I think it's June 23rd by now, US time, because I'm recording this in the middle of the night. But this morning, Miyuki sends me an article like 2 days after we recorded, and she discovered something that we were unsure about, and that resulted in, well, I have to re-record this. So unfortunately, that episode will never see the light of day publicly. But if you want to check out my hidden episode, my lost episode, you can go to the Patreon and become a member. It's there for the patrons because I had already released it to the patrons. Now I'm re-recording this. Anyway, the origins of this. Well, it's tricky. So there are two stories that I came across. First, 1981. This is during the Emperor's Cup. So we're talking about before the J League existed. There was another soccer league. I'm not sure what it was called. I don't know, but I think the J League started in 93, if I remember correctly. Anyway, the Emperor's Cup was the final to this pre J League soccer league, and it happened on January 1st, 1981. Well, every year it happened, but we're talking about that specific match. There was a team called Tanabe Seiyaku. They don't exist anymore. Tanabe Seiyaku was playing in the finals, and they ended up losing. Tanabe Seiyaku's cheering group decided to clean up trash after the match. And one article that I came across pointed to this as the origin of the custom of picking up trash at the soccer stadium, right? So, by the way, Tanabe Seiyaku, the people that were cleaning up the trash had bussed in from Osaka. Well, I don't know if they bussed in, but maybe train or bus from Osaka to Tokyo to the National Stadium. And the thing about, well, these people were that they were factory workers. And it's very common to clean up after yourself in a factory, right? Maybe not so much at the office, but in a factory, yeah. You need to clean up your workspace before you leave, and then you're ready to go the next day. So this story makes sense, right? And I can totally see it being, the inspiration for what we have now. However, a few other websites point to something different as the origin of this custom. And here is the part that Miyuki and I had some issues with, because we found two articles that were on websites that were not reliable. Like, we didn't know who wrote these things. It seemed like just internet rumors. And so we couldn't say that these were reliable sources. So we were very unsure about whether this was true in any way whatsoever. However, today she sent me an article from Asahi Shimbun written by an actual sports writer that included quotes from another sports writer that seemed to confirm that this actually happened. So what happened? Well, in this article, it explains that back in 1985, Japan played against Korea. These were the final qualifying rounds to the World Cup. So Japan was on the brink of qualifying for the 1986 World Cup. It seems, apologies if you're a soccer fan, I'm getting something wrong, apologies. But it seems that they had to win against Korea in order to make it to the World Cup 1986 Mexico. They ended up losing, though. At the end of the game, the fans noticed that the Korean fans were picking up trash. And so one fan in particular, Yoshizawa Koichi, is the one that tells this story. So his quotes appear in a book that was published many years ago, it seems, but his quotes, I'm not sure if they're quoting from the book or they talked to him again, whatever. He was a high school student at the time and he saw this happen. He was one of the supporters, and he was just disappointed that not only had they lost, right? But in the Asahi Shimbun article that I'm quoting here, he explains they couldn't even catch up. They weren't on the same level as the Korean fans. He was so disappointed in himself, seeing how they were behaving themselves so well. And they were, Japan, lost, and now they were all sad, and they weren't even, picking up trash or anything like that. And so he apparently was a very influential supporter, cheerer for Japan and local soccer clubs, before the J League. Then in 93, he was a big supporter for the J League and his specific team, and he helped spread that custom of picking up trash after the game, right? So again, Yoshizawa Koichi, it seems that he was highly influential in this, and his actions in helping spread this are probably what led to the current custom today. Again, this article is from Asahi Shimbun, reliable. Yoshizawa Koichi is a sports writer. It's well documented that he has a long history with Japanese soccer. So I believe this. I believe that he saw Korean fans picking up trash. That inspired him to do what he did and help spread this custom in Japan. Another article says that in 1997, we have a documented example of Japanese soccer fans using blue garbage bags to cheer. And specifically, they point to an article from 97 during the qualifiers for the World Cup for the 1998 France World Cup. And this was a match against Kazakhstan in Japan at the National Stadium. I think it was in November of 97. So there's an article that actually picked this up and did a story about this, well, about the victory. And in that article, it seems that they mention the garbage bags. Also, I forgot to mention that Yoshizawa mentions that I think it was a TV station actually did a story about him and the garbage cleaning kind of bags. And well, I don't know if he was using blue garbage bags at the time. The article that I read on Asahi did not explicitly say that they were using blue garbage bags, but Yoshizawa does say that a TV station did a story about him and cleaning up trash after games. And again, this was after 85. So in 85, it was the game with Korea. And then after that, he started spreading this custom. So this got media coverage, what he was doing. So did he directly organize the 1997, garbage bags and the cheering and all that? Like, I don't know. The articles do not say that. Did his actions inspire whoever, did the 97 organization of the cheering groups and their garbage bags? Possible, totally possible. In fact, that seems likely, unless it was Yoshizawa himself who organized the blue garbage bags and all. I don't know. That's unclear. And what role did the 1981 Tanabe Seiyaku picking up trash thing have in all of this? As far as I can tell, that seems to be an independent thing that did not directly inspire the World Cup picking up of trash. Okay. It's just Japanese people like to clean, I guess. So it was already happening even in 81 and even before Yoshizawa saw the Korean fans do this in 85. It's just that there's no direct connection between these two as far as I can tell. All right. Now, what about the blue garbage bags? Why blue garbage bags? Why specifically do they do this? Well, it's a 2-in-1 thing, first of all, right? They can use this as a balloon to like cheer, right? And it's lightweight. It's easy to pass out both to the Japanese fans and the non-Japanese fans. For example, if they're abroad, right, in a game that is not in Japan, they can pass out those bags easily. They can carry them on the airplane easily. So it's a good idea. It's a very good idea, right? Like instead of, for example, just taking balloons, which simply become trash, how about we use garbage bags that are all blue, like the color of the Japanese soccer uniform. And then you can have a big mass of blue in the stands. And then at the end, you're left with a garbage bag, which you can use. It's very practical. Okay. So it was one article that I came across. It was a Japanese comedian. He was explaining it like that. And yeah, makes total sense. So that is basically it. But like in the article with Yoshizawa Koichi, the guy that potentially started this custom within Japan post J League, well, he spread the custom. Let's put it that way. That he was inspired by Korea. He's asked, like, why do you think this custom spread? And he said, it's an opportunity for Japanese fans to confirm their Japaneseness and polish their Japaneseness. And he associates the idea of cleaning with being Japanese. Like, he doesn't say that. I'm interpreting his words here. Even though it's interesting that he directly says that he was inspired by the Korean fans picking up trash. I like there is an element of Orientalism in this, in that the Western, the non-Japanese media love this story because it's Japanese people behaving like what they expect Japanese people to behave like. And here's the thing, like, yes, Japan is a very clean country. Japanese people, on average, right, they tend to follow the rules. Japan is a low crime country compared to many other places. And there is truth to this idea of Japanese people cleaning, right? Like from the time they are in elementary school, they're cleaning up after themselves. They're cleaning their classroom. There is absolutely an element to this. But saying that this is everybody in Japan is also, well, not true, right? For example, I used to live in Kobe long time ago now at this point, but I used to teach in the Suma area, and there's a Suma beach there, and this beach was known to be quote unquote dirty. But it wasn't because foreigners were dumping their trash there. No, it was because the local Japanese wild kids would go there, party, and leave their trash behind. And so this was a big deal at the time. And actually, I've done an episode about the fact that, you know, how there's very few public trash cans in Japan. Well, it's often said that it was because of the sarin gas attacks in the 90s. And that's a gross oversimplification. There's also an element of this involving Japanese people dumping trash. I did an entire episode about this in Japan Station. Go back. It's probably like a year ago at this point, or more, maybe. It was a little while ago, but it's a very interesting episode because, again, the whole sarin gas attack thing is a gross oversimplification. But the point is here that it's really interesting that potentially, the inspiration that led to, oh my God, look at Japan being so clean. It's amazing. And Japanese people are polishing their Japaneseness, as Yoshizawa Koichi puts it, was actually inspired by something Korean fans did. Crazy. Oh my goodness. All right. So if you want to see the articles that I mentioned in this episode, you can find it in the show notes or in the description on YouTube, because there is a YouTube version of this. So you can check in the description. I'll put the links there, and you can use Google Translate or, well, I don't know, ChatGPT or whatever to translate that stuff. So there you go. Yeah, that is as far as I can tell, the origins of the Japanese people cleaning up trash at the World Cup. Well, at the World Cup, 98 World Cup is the first time that Japan made it to the World Cup. So if you want to just simply say the origins of the World Cup thing, it would be 98 France. That's what just about any source that mentions that, right? That mentions specifically the first time in the World Cup, they say, oh, it rose to prominence in the 98 World Cup because Japan, that was the first time that Japan made it. But 97 seems to be a documented case. And then we get into the murky waters with potentially Yoshizawa Koichi being the originator, but he was inspired by Korea. But then there's also the possibility that Japan was already doing this in some way in their local matches because of the 1981 Tanabe Seiyaku news. And it's also possible that people were doing this, for example, at baseball games. I don't know. I didn't see any reports of this, but it's also possible that this kind of stuff was already happening at other sporting events. So it's tough to say exactly this was the moment when Japanese sports fans started picking up their own trash. I don't know, but that's what we got. If you want the links, check it out down below. If you want access to the now lost episode of Japan Station, which I had to shelf because I'm not going to release it publicly because I got this new information from Yoshizawa Koichi, this Asahi Shimbun article, you can go to the Patreon and you can join for as little as $1 a month, and you'll get early access to episodes and occasional bonus content. And if you're planning to go to Japan and you want a SIM card with a Japanese phone number and data, check out mobile.com/TonyJapan. You'll get 10% off, and I get a little something to keep this show running. Again, mobal.com/TonyJapan. Links for all that stuff, the Patreon and all that, down in the show notes. You can also go to Ko-fi for a one-time donation, ko-fi.com/JapanGo. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you're on YouTube. And if you're on the podcast side, how about a rating and a review? I would greatly appreciate that. All right, guys, see you next time.